sometimes the best deals are the deals we don't do.
Wow.
And that's a hard one for a guy who just wants to do great deals.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to Case Studies. I am with a friend that I've had for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Met James almost the first couple of weeks that I moved down to Utah County.
Cool. It's incredible to think about it that way.
And it was coming straight off on my mission and getting exposed to selling satellite.
It's incredible.
And ultimately, you had a company at that point called iSatellite.
Yeah.
And I was getting recruited by a company called Atlas Marketing.
I remember Atlas really well.
And ultimately ended up going with Atlas because I had a high school friend that I played sports with and didn't fully kind of understand the game back then, but that's pretty common. You kind of go with the strongest relationship you have. And anyway, that's when we met, and it's been a fun relationship to follow you and Andrea and just kind of go through that whole experience. And so anyway, excited to have you on. It's been, you've been somebody that I've wanted to have on for a long time.
You're remarkable. And it's been amazing to see what you and Chelsea have done here in the community. And we're just honored. We've been fans for a long time, but to call you a friend is an honor for us. So thank you so much.
So I want to go back to the very beginning. Like, well, obviously you are where you're at today, and we'll get to kind of the, 2025 James Clarke. But I want to go back to kind of where it all began.
Going all the way back, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I grew up working on farms there in southeast Idaho, Rexburg.
Okay.
Which, I lived in town, but that meant I was approximately, 200 yards from the nearest farm. And we moved there. Our family moved there from Salt Lake to help my aunt with a business that was called Diet Center in southeast Idaho. That ended up being sort of a big thing. They were all over the world with about 2,000 sort of sites.
Wow.
My dad worked for that company. So I was really exposed to entrepreneurship at an early age to watch
in Rexburg.
If you can imagine.
Yeah,
Rexburg, Idaho.
So random.
It is random, and you think about that, but it was interesting to watch them as the have-not amongst the haves, to watch them build that. I mean, this was a family that in little old Rexburg, Idaho, had helicopter landing pad in their backyard and hangar there and a baseball diamond in their yard and exotic animals and 20 yards or 20 acres of grass. And you watch that sort of scene. Those are call them the trappings of success. Every dance that I had in high school, it was an aunt calling me, "Would you like to take my car to the dance?" And it was a car I'd never seen.
So this is family.
This is family.
Okay.
Watching that take place. And, she grew up in the same household as my dad. And I thought, gosh, if she can do this, maybe I could do this when I grow up as well. But I saw what that sort of brought to, more than anything, it wasn't about the cars that she drove or the home. It was that she was so generous to me as a person. I was in student leadership, and she would call every year and she would say, "Hey, a U.S. senator is coming into town. Would you like to lead in folding this flag with him? Or what does your school need? Do you need new lockers?" Sends over new lockers for our entire school. "Do you need a new sound system? How about that?" And it was, it was really just this generosity of spirit in everything she did. So it really was sort of this carrot that was dangled out in front of me of what it could look like if I were ever in that position. And she was such a great example. She and her husband were.
Dude, how important are mentors or examples?
Everything.
Like at that age.
It was everything for me.
Because you think about so much of vision is seeing it first. You know what I mean? To just create it out of thin air is really tough, but to see an example
absolutely
and even to have a healthy relationship with money is it's a controversial topic, and there's unhealthy relationships with it. I really want it, but I shouldn't want it.
Yeah.
Versus you looking at it saying, "Hey, this is a tool of production that can do a lot of good in the world."
Yeah. And it really is a stewardship. And I watched her as a great steward doing that. And then, I sort of watched how it affected her family and even her own children. I think they allocated to their children really early and how that affected them. And so there was certainly the upside and the wonderful parts of what she did, but also sort of a cautionary tale of sorts of how I would perhaps do things a little differently with my own children. I mean, if you ask any of my kids what they get when mom and dad blast off and we're here no longer, it's zero. It is, they're going to have to make their own way. But we will give them opportunities and education, and they're going to make their own way. And so I didn't want to cheat our kids out of that opportunity to decide what they were going to do either, but have had some great mentors.
So I don't want to veer too far off the road, but what did you learn? Like, if you could summarize, hey, these were the good things.
Yeah.
And these were the cautionary things that you noted that, if I go achieve that level of wealth, this is what I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
And this is what I am going to do.
Starting with that final question, what I would not do is probably allocate to my own children. I've made that plain that same way. And certainly there are opportunities
and maybe define that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, we're still figuring that one out. Yeah. So our kids are either, late teenage years or young adults. They're in that decade of decisions, right? Yeah. People think it's easier once they leave your home, and it's absolutely not true. This is when things get substantially more challenging.
Yeah.
For us to sort of see, have we done a good job? Have they learned sort of the traditions of our family? Have they learned this? We talk about labor and honor in our family a lot. Have they learned that? Will they do that? I'm here with a young man who's dating my daughter right now. And maybe this is very disappointing for him to hear that there's nothing left for my children at the end of this, but it'll certainly be an education and a path towards what we hope is great happiness and a stewardship.
Yeah, but I'm fascinated. Like, so what are the you will do? What are the I won't do?
Yeah, we will certainly allocate towards education. And the reason we were talking about education, the importance of education in your life. We've both shared a program at Harvard together. I think it's the best program that one could do in our situations of being operators and investors, and built meaningful relationships there. What we'll continue to do is invest in our kids' education. My wife went back, like your wife, went back to grad school, did a master's at Columbia during COVID.
So cool.
And it was such a great example for these kids to see what they could do then with an education and then leverage that towards something. And so we'll continue to invest in their education. We'll continue to mentor. These young adults that we now have been exposed to people like yourself their whole lives. And finally, they're coming to sort of this realization, hey, that Casey Baugh is pretty amazing. He's world class. Or guys like Todd Peterson that they've seen their whole lives, or others that they've been around. It's like, this is a pretty unique experience as young people. And we've tried to expose them that way and keep them around our work in all that we do. Not that there's some guaranteed job for them at the end of this, because that is absolutely the will not situation. Go get a great education, work on Wall Street or Main Street or wherever you want to work. And if you'd like to get a job with our family or with our firm, you can apply like anybody else.
But yes on education. What else is yes? Like what, being a Clarke.
Yeah.
What's your birthright?
Now,
what do you
there's not much, frankly.
Yeah.
Other than we're going to teach you how to work. And that's the great gift that I hope our children come away with, is that they know how to work, that we've kept them working. And it's probably not your typical, maybe what we grew up with. And when I talk about working on the farm or those kinds of things, it's different.
Yeah.
And, mine goes back, and I've told this story a lot, but mine was my dad writing on a check every week that I would work for him, even in our yard and in the summers when I was much younger, before I could go out and get a job. And he would write in that little memo section, if I'd done a good job, labor and honor. That was our family crest that dates back years and years. But we're nobodies, of course. Clarke just means that we were secretaries. So we're nobodies back in England. But the reality is, if I hadn't done a good job at the end of those weeks, if I hadn't been sort of dutiful or shown up on time or finished, it's simply read labor. And so the birthright for our kids is, hopefully they understand labor and honor. And like I said, I watched this aunt build this wonderful business, this Aunt Sybil Ferguson of mine. And as they did that, they became sort of heroic in this small town where I grew up. And, folks that we now know as, worldwide names, Jenny Craig, Nutrisystem, they all came out of that business. They sold early, so people wouldn't know the Fergusons the way that I know them.
Yeah.
But they had built this remarkable business that built other businesses and built this community and elevated it in meaningful ways. And I hope that our children are able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Building and lifting others. As I know you talk a lot about abundance. It's one of the great themes of your life. And we hope that it is of ours as well.
Yeah.
That there is plenty out there, and that, that calculus is, in lifting others, you lift yourselves.
Yeah. So you grew up with like this amazing model. Was she one of a lot, or was she kind of the model? Was she kind of like that light in your life that you said, that's possible?
Yeah, that was, so if you think about other people that have been an example to me, a guy named Roger Bannister. And he was the previous headmaster at my college when I went over to school in England. He was the first man to run the sub 4-minute mile. Wow. If you remember hearing that story, people thought your heart would burst, it would explode. You couldn't do that. And he showed everybody else what the art of the possible was. And just 6 weeks later, a guy named John Landy did the same, but nobody knows who John Landy is.
But this is way later. Like for her, at that point in life, I mean, those years, I think about myself and Gary Stevenson and Lisa. They were, when you think about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they were my rich parents. And
I listened to that book as I was building Clearlink. Yeah. Every day for a year, I would listen to that, trying to build those 4 quadrants and what would be my system that I was building. The point with Roger Bannister was, I met him much later, but he showed me he showed the world the art of the
impossible.
And once you can do that, everybody can do that. Yeah. I mean, if you're athletically inclined, and he wasn't perhaps the most gifted in that way, he was very intelligent, but he said...
Because today, the world that you live in, you see those people all the time.
We see him.
Like when you go to Harvard or when you go to Oxford or when you're in any senior leadership role, like you're around crazy inspiring people.
Really, truly.
But when you're a kid, and especially like a kid growing up in a small town, you just don't have that perspective.
No,
and so
I didn't.
I'm kind of hung up on this point.
Yeah.
Because I know how impactful it was for me. I still remember me and my friend, the first time I ever ate a good steak.
Really?
I was 17 years old, and we're with Brian's dad.
Is that right?
And we're at Roost Chris Steakhouse.
No kidding.
And I'm like, I need to make a lot of money so that I can have this. I did not know this existed in life. I did not
So they showed you the art of the possible.
When all of a sudden it opens a whole different level of motivation.
And it was. And for me in my young life, that was this Aunt Sybil. In my later life, it's been a brother-in-law of mine. I'm married to my sister, who's built a remarkable suite of businesses throughout his life. I'd give you 100 guesses and you would never guess the business that he's built, but it's the largest company by market cap in the state of Utah.
What?
And he's a remarkable individual, but they're very, very humble.
Spill the beans.
They'll be very sad if I mention them by name, but he has been such a great mentor to me. And they've been the example of how to do this and raise wonderful children and be close to their faith and examples and what they're really about, what their core values are. And so that sister of mine and I are very, very close. I am with all of my family members, but that's been, if you're talking about sort of this wonderful aunt that was a great example, and then this wonderful brother-in-law married to my sister, who's been a wonderful example of sort of the right way to then do that intergenerational.
Yeah. So what did that equate to? You went, you had this experience where you were working around this. She was obviously involved in your life. Graduate from high school. Where'd you go next?
Yeah. So for me, growing up watching this, I think the great blessing for me watching that was to focus on what my gifts were. So, I have all these buddies growing up that are really, really talented. A lot of them football or basketball players, and I was not gifted or talented that way. Even though my dad was an All-American football player, I just decided this was not going to be for me. But while all my friends wanted to be Michael Jordan and play for the Bulls, I decided I was going to try to own the Bulls.
So I wanted that entrepreneurship mentality was always a part of your upbringing.
I think so. I think it was sort of, I don't think I ever had the patience to climb a ladder to become a CEO. So I had to appoint myself as CEO. But I also knew that, watching people that had built great businesses, I thought this is in me and I can do this as well. If a person like that can do it, hopefully I could as well. So it was really inspiring to me. It was a really unique way of growing up.
So you finish up school. Where'd you go from there?
Well, let's talk about that because I didn't finish up school. So I went to Ricks College. I came to BYU. I was a massive failure. I got into BYU, but I was in the middle of my first entrepreneurial pursuit, which was a fourplex in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Even from where I was, it was 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
I had run for student body president at Ricks College. I got 70% of the vote in the preliminary. election, and in the final election, I lost by, less than 100 votes in the end, right? So it was really interesting. I mean, there's 6 other guys that get 30% of the vote. I got 70% of the vote.
Paired up, or like what happened?
Well, and Casey, this was the great lesson, is that I just got out hustled. And it taught me the greatest lesson, that I would just never get out hustled again, because I was full of pride, and I thought that I was entitled, and it was over. And, I stopped working. And the guy that was the finalist against me, he worked his guts out, and he deserved to win, and I didn't deserve to win. And it taught me a lot, that I would just never get out hustled again. So that was my situation. I took some time off. I took a job at U.S. Bank to be a mortgage lender for about a year, because it was really hard to go back to school, thinking, I was the anointed one. I should have been appointed as the student body president, and I wasn't. And it took me sort of eating some humble pie and then going back to school. But in the meantime, I started my first entrepreneurial, sort of venture, which was this fourplex that was just a dive. I mean, it was a complete dump. I remember ripping out drywall and rat carcasses falling on my head. And I had no clue what I was doing, but I thought, everybody's making money in real estate. I had to do this. I was lending money, at US Bank as a mortgage broker early on. But I had no clue. And it taught me, to sort of calculate the cost. And it was the best sort of tuition I ever paid in my life, was to sort of take that time, learn. But I also failed, and I failed miserably, because I failed in that fourplex, because it was way more expensive than I ever thought it was going to be. I couldn't get people to rent in it. The first 3 rules of real estate: location, location, location. Terrible location, a block removed from what would have been a great location. And I was far away from it. I was, back in Provo, trying to sort of go to school, and I didn't know how to manage it. And so what seems like a very insignificant thing today was so overwhelming and significant to me. I had put everything into it. I had gone to my parents. They put everything that they had into it. My grandmother. I mean, everybody was trying to bail out James in this. And I had a decision to make. I was either going to sort of finish school, or I was going to start digging my way out of that hole. And the only way I knew how to dig out of that hole was to start and do something myself. And that's sort of when iSatellite was formed. Wow. So, I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur, other than I just failed in a massive way. I was failing in school. I leave. And that's really why I went and did sort of this fellowship program that you and I have both done with OPM at HBS. And it was the greatest educational experience that I'd ever had. So fast forwarding, of course, some time. But, even iSatellite, where we got to know each other a little bit, was for me a bit of a failure. I'd been in it sort of almost 3 seasons, so 2.5 years. So 3 groups of, sort of these cohorts that come through, do summer sales, work really hard. We still owed all kinds of debt on the business. I had to sort of write my pro rata version of that debt, hand it to my partners, and walk away to go start Clearlink.
Wow.
I was newly engaged. My wife had this my now wife, my then fiance, had this wonderful job as a drug rep, where she was the number 1 or 2 in the country.
She was a hustler.
She was a hustler.
Let's go.
And she knew how to work. She
mama.
And she was in every way. And it's thanks to her and her belief, because nobody believed in the internet. I mean, the dot-com bubble had burst.
You were how old at this point?
This was later in life. This was, I got married when I was 29. She was 31. So it was later in life for us. And
it's crazy how similar your story is to Jeremy Andrus.
Oh, yeah.
I did one of these with Jeremy.
Did you?
And same thing. He was a little bit older when he got married.
Yeah.
And his wife she was killing it. She was doing real estate. She was killing it. And ultimately, that gave him permission to go be the entrepreneur, because they had some structure, they had some stability. And so
she was, for us, the breadwinner, much like Kristen was for Jeremy. And it allowed us to do this, but it was hard. I mean, she was the type that, saving was everything. Looking at that money under the mattress.
She liked it.
Absolutely. And the reality was, for her, she had not grown up around entrepreneurs. Both of her parents were educators, a little like my parents, but at least I had seen that. She hadn't seen how that all worked. So it was really hard in an early marriage to do that, and for her to believe, but to risk
capital.
Yeah, that it was hard earned, and she did. But it was the greatest blessing to us, and a lot of faith and blood, sweat, and tears. But she and I made a deal with heaven above that by the time, and it was later in life, we wanted to have children. And I made the deal that if she would invest in me by the time that first child came, that business would be cash flowing, and true to our word and answer to prayers. That's what took place with Clearlink. And so
rad is that? So it was full-blown partnership.
It was like beautiful.
We're going all in on this.
And she was all in. And it was really a beautiful thing to see, because it was twists and turns and difficulties, but it made sense. And from that day on, it cash flowed, it replaced her income, and it's been a beautiful ride for us.
Wow.
Not an easy ride, but a beautiful ride.
You started Clearlink when?
So that was the fall of 2011. 2001. And, again, the landscape out there was ugly.
So I take it back. You weren't at iSatellite when I got exposed
probably not.
Who was it? It
was Sean.
And Sean.
Yeah, and Skeeter and those guys. So that was later on when they were doing that.
So now it's coming together.
Yeah. But I remember
Clearlink preceded
knowing
that.
of you, around that time. But it was, I just handed things over to those guys and really walked away from a business that was just ready to explode. And I learned a lot through that process. Like I said, I had to write a check to buy my way out. And so it was not just, I'm starting here with a level playing field.
Yeah.
I'm starting in the hole. And the promise was, we've got residuals coming. We'll pay you those every month. Well, those never came. So I was never paid back. And then by the time Clearlink really started to grow and online we became the leader, that's when iSatellite said, oh, that's a pretty good idea. And literally our website, our name, our copyright symbol, our telephone number was copied by iSatellite, my former partners. And we laugh about it today, by the way. And I'm really close to my primary partner there. Just a really great guy. But we laugh about it now, but back then it wasn't funny. And you know how Google hates duplicate content. 2 twinned websites out there, and it just killed us for a little while. And we're like, what is going on? And anyways, true to real friendship, that former partner sat in my office, tears in his eyes, apologized, and it was over. And it was... it could have been ugly, it could have been blows, but I'm a believer in him, and it wasn't because of his character. And so people make mistakes, but the reality was that was one where it could have gone one way, and it really, really hurt us. Absolutely. So so I cheer him on and am a big fan of what he has done in his career. Pretty remarkable guy.
So you basically started that in 2001.
Yeah. 9/11 had just taken place. Competitive landscape is completely wiped out.
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier, the internet at that point, there was just like carnage everywhere. There was so much capital that flowed into it.
Yeah.
If you .com anything, you could raise money at kind of whatever valuation you wanted to. And then it flipped really quick.
Really, that pendulum completely swung to this side of that equation. And the reality is there wasn't money to be raised if I was trying to raise it. And that's why
you just couldn't do it.
That sweet and dear fiance of mine saved us and made that work. And I'll forever be grateful. I think it was a pretty great return on her investment in the end.
Yeah, no doubt.
Really, it could have been an ugly beginning to what has been just a beautiful and lovely life for us together.
So you guys start that business.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that's like very good to know.
Yeah.
Especially for young entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That it was an overnight success that took 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the misnomer that I've seen more than anything with entrepreneurship is it takes a decade or more.
It does.
And anything that I've seen that's like significant and real, like it does. It always takes longer.
That's right. And in addition to the time element, there is always a story, a little like some of these very challenging stories that I've just related and we've shared, is there's always something there, because the best part of businesses that I've experienced are the people. Also, the most challenging parts are the people.
Yeah.
Every problem, and we joke about this, every problem I face in business has a first and a last name.
Yeah.
It's not the business problems that I worry about or go to bed at night thinking about. It's the people problems. It's these relationships that you've developed. And when I have aligned with people, I never worry about them.
Yeah.
When we get misaligned is when I always worry about those.
Yeah.
And we've seen those, but every business is sort of this decade plus. I mean, our mutual friend in Todd Peterson. It is a great example
30 years,
of that.
You know, like
exactly.
when it's all said and done. And even for us, like I remember we sold to Blackstone and we brought on an exceptional C-suite.
Yeah.
You know, people from all over the country.
Brand name.
Yeah. Matt Eyring, David Bywater,
Yes.
Todd Santiago.
Exceptional human beings.
Scott Hardy. Like all these guys
Great
are just
guys.
like forces of nature in their own field. But I think everybody thought it was 3 to 5 years. Everybody. Like that was and it took 10.
Yeah.
And there was broken processes along the way, you know, and ultimately the outcome was great, but it was twice as long as anybody signed up for.
Absolutely.
And not as big, but great.
Exceptional.
It's kind of one of these things that it's like it's
pretty remarkable.
It's just how like life works, you know.
It is hard. I mean, there's a reason that everyone doesn't just do this.
Yeah.
Because the trappings of success are beautiful and wonderful if that's what you achieve, but it's hard.
It's so hard.
Every one of these stories that you're describing or that I've shared, it is just knock down, drag out, hard work, blood and guts, grit, grind, gumption every single day to make things work because markets are hard.
Talk to me about the story of that company and exiting that company. Kind of what was the company when you built it up?
Yeah.
Who was the buyer?
Yeah.
How did that thing come to fruition?
Yeah. So this is Clearlink, back to the days of starting that in 2001. The buyer ended up being Wachovia or Clarke Capital. They changed their name through the 2008 crisis. They acquired the business and, it was a great day for us. But it was also a sad day in some ways because I knew that there was so much meat left on the bone and I still wanted to be there, but it was the right decision for us to do that.
Give me some metrics. What was the company doing at that point?
Well,
revenue? Like what was that business?
Yeah, so it wasn't all that big of a company in the end. So it was a 9-figure exit for us. We've never really disclosed what that was, but we were doing we would generate about at that time, we were generating about $500 million for our partners. Today, we generate billions of dollars for our partners in that business. The sad part is we don't get to book the revenue. We then get our revenue, and then we had sort of an 8-figure EBITDA and beyond, which was healthy for us. Yeah. So it took us into a great place. The good news was because it was my wife who was the investor, and I named that company for she and I. Her maiden name's Earl. My last name's Clarke. Clearlink is where this came from. And that's my tribute to her. We built the business and exit. It was a nice thing because she was the investor. That was the cap table.
You didn't go give it to Blackstone.
No, we did. If I could go back in time, and this is the woulda, coulda, shoulda part of every one of us as we think about that, I would have been way better off. So I could have probably done a debt recap and pulled off
the same amount of money
and own the business outright or bring in a strategic partner
just didn't have the tool set or the skill set at that point in life to actually know that was an option.
No, but the gift that I had was in 2008, we thought we were going to sell things. The world fell apart. Every offer went away. And I had already appointed a CEO because I didn't want, the golden handcuffs that typically come with an exit like that. And so I had 2 years between end of 2008, beginning of 2011, 2.5 years or so to sort of figure out what I was going to do with that next phase of my life. Yeah. If I had some money in my pocket, how would I invest? Yeah. I had felt really fortunate that in sort of 2005, 2006, we'd allocated to a life science deal, a company called Montagen that sold to a publicly traded company called Supergen.
And that was like a great outcome for you, right?
Great outcome with a wonderful team and this great scientist who's a rock star in Dave Bierce. And for 20 years, I've tried to figure out a way to work with him again, and I'm now working with him. But before that happened, I figured every deal was like that. You close your eyes, you write a check, here you go. Yeah. And a couple of years later, we talk about the 10-year deal. This was a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I mean,
I saw these great multiples, and I thought every deal was like that. And so I started allocating like that. My next 5 deals just completely went away. To nothing. Zero. Exactly. And so it was a great lesson for me to lose in those, but also those 2 years to figure out what was I going to do. Yeah. I am not the write 10 checks, lose on 9, grand slam home run on the 10th. Yeah. I felt like the best part of a business was, or the hardest part of a business at least, was going from 0 idea to $1 million of EBITDA, real profits.
Really hard.
Rather than, and
most companies
this.
never get there.
No, they don't.
Most companies never get $1 million of revenue.
That's exactly right.
EBITDA is a whole different world.
Yeah, and we love E in EBITDA, the earnings part of that. And I know you do as well at Sandlot. But the reality for us is we knew that if somebody could do that, then we could help them sort of scale it. It was that nail it and scale it principle that we.
So that was where the thesis kind of switched.
That's where I felt like, okay, we can add a little bit of expertise. And it was interesting. So with the very month that we sold, so January of 2011, I guess it was not just the month, but the week that we had transacted, I was approached on 2 separate deals. Of course, they know you're having a liquidity event.
Of course.
You're approached. One was a camera deal, and I never would have thought that would be something we'd be interested in, but there was this new burgeoning market for action cameras. There was a little company called GoPro that was a square little camera that went on the top of a helmet. We all know what GoPro is today. But the company that we invested in was called Contour, and Wired Magazine and every other technologist thought this was it. It had the better technology, had wireless connectivity to your phone, all kinds of things that GoPro didn't have.
Yeah.
And it was sleek and cylindrical, and with your gloves on when you're skiing, you could turn it on, and it was amazing. And so we invested. While they were both the same size, both doing about 30 million of revenue or so, we invested in Contour. And we thought, we'll bring our relationships into Walmart and other large sort of platforms. And the CEO, I still remember this conversation, said, we don't want to sell out. And GoPro went right into those relationships. They went from that size to $250 million, $500 million, $1 billion, just under $1 billion of revenue. And then they IPO'd and went straight to sort of.
You're sitting there saying, we had it. We had the market.
And even worse, we went out of business.
Yeah.
We were bankrupt not too many months later. And so we had a choice, write it off or figure out a different strategy, because we knew the technology was great.
Yeah.
But we sat in a room, my team, we sat in a room and thought through sort of what we were good at. And we had a great little legal team that knew sort of IP and had a strategy around this. And so we sat in a room with Sony and a large bulge bracket bank that had a debt or credit bid that they could have raised their hand at sort of $11 million and owned the deal. But we were the only group that sort of thought, okay, we know how to run this thing.
Yeah.
We're going to bring it in-house. We're going to buy it. And so we bought it for less than the inventory that was on their balance sheet.
Wow.
Just under $2 million that we paid for that deal. And I had already put millions into it as an investor, but we bought it, raised capital on it, and turned it into an intellectual property strategy. And we were able to sell that one about 4 years later through, again, a lot of grit and challenge in the market, but to a private equity, 2 billionaires out of Texas, the former head of Motorola, as an intellectual property strategy. And it was the largest IP deal of the last 10 years. But that was because I think at Clarke, what we pride ourselves as being is operators first and investors second. That we can run a business, that we've done that. And so that was
like those stories are so rare. Like it's very tough to bring something back from the dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like a Easter story that you got going on. You know what I mean? Like most of the time, whether it's management team or whatever it is. And so it's fascinating you guys were able to get creative. And you must have known, hey, we have something special with the IP.
There was something special with the IP. And it's still going. This is an ongoing sort of battle and saga. But we sold 90% of that deal, still own 10%. And they're still sort of battling that one out. They've won certain suits and so forth with the IP. But
with GoPro.
With others even, and leveraging that. And I listen, I don't think litigation is a great business strategy. Let me be really clear about that. But this is what those buyers wanted to do. And we knew that we needed to defend the invention. And
I mean, Vivint, they became one of the biggest patent producers in the state.
It's remarkable.
They had a whole strategy around IP. And they have like significant revenue today that comes from people violating their patents and settling. And so you're either going to play offense or defense with it, but like one way or another, like it's very important piece. You know?
It is. And so I learned a lot.
And as a young entrepreneur, you're completely oblivious to it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So that was sort of our first deal that we did. And it was long and drawn out and it was difficult, but we made it through. Our other allocation, we first, I think the first check we wrote was into a company that is now, a real pet health player. Back then they were called True Science, and they were doing sort of $1 million of revenue. They were not in our thesis at all, but they said, gosh, if we just had the dollars in, we can grow. And this was the former CEO of Polaroid. He knew how to run things. His partner, who was the COO, was the former president of the Jack Nicklaus companies. He took the Jack Nicklaus companies private when they were struggling as a public company. And as a favor to that guy, Scott Adcock, he was made the only partner that Jack Nicklaus had ever taken on. So these were really great operators. And I know you operate with that same thesis. We were going to bet on people every time. And so I did. I bet on them, even though they were way outside of the thesis from a size standpoint. So we allocated our first $2 million. Weeks later, it was another $4 million. By the end of sort of that first year, we had 10 into that deal. And by the end,
it
was about,
number.
For me, for a guy like me back then, it was a real allocation. We were the largest stakeholder in it.
Were you doing all of your own capital? Or
we were. We weren't raising from the outside. We later raised from other partners and private equities, but we've never managed to fund. We've done sort of club deals, allocating that way. But for us to allocate 10 and then ultimately 30 into that was a big one.
That's a big number.
So we had a really concentrated position. But the good news is last year that business sold for $1.5 billion of enterprise value with their, or $2 billion of enterprise value, $500 million of assumed debt in that one. So about a $2 billion deal.
Dude, I knew you were in that deal, but I'd never heard the end of the story.
Isn't that fun to see those guys? We took it public.
It was fired up. That
was a fun one with a great team. But again, to your point earlier, Casey, never as easy as it looks like from the outside.
That's 13 years later, 14 years later.
That was a grind. And I was on the board for 10 years. And it was great, but I think 10 years is probably my max in any board. So I rotated off the board, and they had some really great folks there. I mean, I served with the former chairman of Albertsons was on that board, the former, the founder of Staples, Tom Stemberg, who was a legend. We had some really great powerhouses there, and I learned a lot from them in the process. Their CEO, great operator that took nothing, turned it into something, and just really, these guys knew how to work. And I was really proud of them. So, to see something like that we've been able to largely keep under the radar, even though it was a publicly traded company. We haven't talked a lot about it, but it's been kind of a fun one to celebrate.
No, it's like
those guys. So
congratulations.
Well, listen to them. But the reality in all of this that we're talking about is, I would argue, the hardest thing in the world. If you want to be a rocket scientist, you can go to school. You can learn. There are books that'll show you the path if you have the capacity. If you want to be a neurosurgeon, there's a path for that. There are books. There is a defined strategy to get you to that place if you have the capacity to do so. To be a first of a kind pet health business like PetIQ was, there's not a map for that. There's not a strategy. There are too many twists and turns to build what you guys built at Vivint. There's just not a strategy for that.
Yeah.
How do you get in the door with a Blackstone? How do you partner with the right people?
So I was doing one of these interviews with David Neilman.
Oh, yeah.
And
great guy.
And at the end of the conversation, I asked him that question. I said, hey, what would you tell yourself as a 21-year-old?
It's a good question.
Getting started in entrepreneurship. And I expected a certain answer. I've asked that question a bunch of times, and people get really philosophical. And, I love all the answers because it's, you're kind of distilling wisdom.
Sure.
And he kind of paused and he just said, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And it surprised me because I was waiting for this pump up. And he just said, if you don't go to bed thinking about it and wake up thinking about it and are willing to give your life to it, it's probably not for you because it's really hard.
It is.
And, it was so insightful because here's a guy who makes it look easy.
He does. And has done it over and over and over.
Fifth time founder and, makes it look easy, but it's not easy, and the more I get to know exceptional entrepreneurs, you realize you have to be so committed. You have to be all in. And we were talking about this, and I want to go here in a second, but going back and operating again after because there's a difference between being a capital allocator and being an operator.
There is.
My personal experience as a capital allocator is more like being grandpa.
That is exactly what
I would say. Fantastic. You get to play with the kids and you get to be in the game.
And they mess their diapers and you hand them right back to mom and dad.
And you step out of it. When you're an operator, you're mom and dad.
You are.
And you're in it all day, every day. And the people issues and
well said.
Yeah, those things. So maybe fill in that gap from like 2011 to taking over Clearlink.
Yeah. So we were really busy with PetIQ. We were busy, sort of with some other parts of the portfolio. We'd been in life science. And this opportunity presented itself, and we had really been sort of slugging it out for a decade or so since we sold, and it couldn't have been a more challenging time for us, because it's right at the tail end. COVID had sort of hit. It was interesting, but it was, now we've got the job that we didn't think we would have, being the CEO in the chair, but getting people back to work. And I'm not even talking about getting them back in the office. I am talking about getting people back to work. That collaborative, creative part of what is so elemental.
I mean, the world went nuts. Like the world went
and we're still paying for it.
Like today, in 2025, the further you get from it, the more you realize like the world went nuts. But when you're in that fog of war,
that's it.
There's no rule book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and for me, it was one of the defining points of my entire life was, what do you do when you know that this is the way and you've got an entire team that says, this is where we're going? And it was a real test as a leader. Am I going to be okay just sort of being guided towards what I felt like was this path downwards?
Yeah.
And the sad part about, for a company that grew like Clearlink did, the business model then became, we'll grow through acquisition. And we won't we'll acquire and we won't necessarily integrate. And it was sort of this road downward through acquisition. And as soon as the music stops playing, as soon as you stop acquiring businesses, you're done.
Yeah.
And that's where this business was going, because, Sitel, now Fendeavor, was not acquiring more. They were interested in growing this business, and we certainly were. And that's why they brought us in. But it was a hard path for people to understand how to actually grow the business. They hadn't
organically actually go build a company
through their own efforts, rather than we're going to go acquire $100 million business. And they'd done that over and over and over. And that was what they knew for the 10 years since I had sold that business. So to get people actually working and creating and bringing in new logos and new clients, this was all newfound territory for a lot of people.
But that was all you had ever done. Like you had built your business off of that.
Right.
So it was a way different business.
Way different. But what I've learned in this process, of course, it's far easier to sort of start from scratch in some ways, because you've chosen in a bespoke way the talent that is coming along with you and the vision that is there. Turning people around, far more challenging.
Really tough.
Even though you've got this great business that is doing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, they've seen real success. They've sort of aggregated this product and this and put it all together, and it worked. But at the same time, they were on this downward slope. And so we had to really get serious about what we wanted to be. And those that were there and those that remained, let's get serious about what this looks like. And there are a lot that were not having it. They they were very happy walking their dogs and doing their laundry during the middle of the day and showing up for 4 hours. And, we had, I think I mentioned this in this now infamous sort of town hall, we had 30 people of many that hadn't even cracked open their laptop in 30 days. And yet they had a job and they were being paid for it. We had many people that we knew that were sort of job stacking, 2 jobs, getting full-time salary for both. A lot of real dysfunction that we were trying to work through.
Like a complete mess.
Truly.
And like to have it be like a political hot point to call it out. Again, today, like, just sounds weird. You're just like, that's weird. But in that moment, like, you got roasted.
Yeah, I did.
Like, you took some strays.
It was, and I thought life was over for a minute. I thought my business life was over. I mean, we had full-time security. We had bulletproof backpacks on our kids, and it was death threats everywhere. It was frightening for my family more so than for me, I think. But in reality, it was like, I thought my business career was over and that I was the guy now that had worked my whole life to be a compassionate leader who was bringing people together. And I never wanted the job to begin with.
Yeah.
I had been there, done that, but I was there. But frankly, I was happy to be there. I was happy to be with this team and seeing what we could actually make of that.
Yeah.
So it was rewarding in that sense. But when that happened, the sad part was from the day that took place, 1 week looking forward was the best week I had spent in that business. People came back. They were excited. Those that were working felt like, okay, now I'm going to get support from the rest of my leaders that aren't sort of showing up. And, people were so grateful and enthusiastic.
But there's just people that don't want you to succeed.
And that's
what I mean?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And frankly, people fighting for their livelihoods to stay at home the way that it was. And listen, I'm a believer. Flexibility is here to stay. There is going to be some version of flexibility. You don't have to necessarily choose, I'm going to be a good father or I'm going to be a good worker or mother or a good worker. You don't.
Yeah.
There is a way to blend that. There's a way to win. There are a lot of technology tools that will allow for that. But forever, we will need to be together. It is the most tactile of all sports.
And you got to work.
That sport of business. And you got to work and grind.
You can't fake
isn't
the
that
effort.
What they say about we entrepreneurs? You get to choose the 80 hours a week that you work.
No, but I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
You take these exceptional founders that have done it at such a Peter Thiel when he's talking about 0 to 1. He's like,
absolutely.
These companies that go 0 to 1, it's a cult. You feel like you have a conspiracy to go take over. It is, everybody's in on it. They love it. They're passionate about it. And the other extreme, you talk about, a Clayton Christensen or a Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
That business is a spiritual game. When it's done right, it's magical.
It is.
But when it's not magical.
Well,
you know what I mean? And when you're trying to build something and people aren't on board, you got to get them off, for them and you.
And I think that's a great lesson for me. It's something that I probably would have done a lot of those things faster.
Yeah.
But what I also learned is that there are great people, and this is just the world in which we live, that everybody's a critic and everybody's got a voice and they're going to say what they're going to say. And sometimes you just got to put your head down and do it. And I never had a moment of feeling sorry for myself in that. The reality was, it was thinking about the employees at Clearlink.
Yeah.
And how did that affect them? And how did that affect then our ability to bring in new talent? Because suddenly I'm the guy that's not, compassionate or, the irony was that I came into this business. There wasn't one female leader. In my first days, I promoted female leaders to vice president roles within the first days.
Yeah.
That had long needed to be in that place and have continued to do that. That's not something you get to, that's not your response. Hey, you're not this. Therefore, I get to say, I've done this and I'm on trial for my whole body of work.
What's interesting to me, and I think this is a really good lesson. When you're describing, I thought my business career was over.
I really did.
You've got me that's not emotionally attached to that at all.
Yeah.
That didn't bother me at all.
Well,
and those problems mean a lot to us when we're in.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking in, I was like, he's trying to build a business and caught some strays from some disgruntled employees. It wasn't he's not going to figure it out. I knew you would figure it out. It was just
it was wild to watch how that all took place. And, I appreciate you saying that, Casey. The reality for me was my least favorite statement in all of business is, it's not personal.
Yeah.
It's all personal.
For sure.
Every part of this is personal.
Much. Yeah.
I care so much about the people within these organizations. I care about my own reputation. I've worked 25, almost 30 years trying to be that kind of person that people could look to as
but this is what I always think about. They killed Jesus. So anybody that anticipates that you can skate through life without criticism or haters or adversity is a naive train of thought. The higher you go, the more adversity you're going to go get, and you have to get a thick skin. It's one of those things that what did Charlie Munger say? It's don't tell anybody about your problems. 90% don't care, and 10% are glad you have them. You know what I mean? And that it's
you're spot on.
It's not super healthy, or happy, quote, but there's some truth to it, which is most people just don't care. Most people care about themselves and their life and their paycheck.
Sure. And it's true. And you bring up the greatest of all examples there, which I'm in no way compare. But the reality is, to do great things, there's going to be great scrutiny. And for me, it was a lesson in putting my head down, doing the right thing. And then your works will speak for themselves in the end. And I hope that it does, for the sake of everybody that's there and that believed in us enough to stay.
But for me, hearing like this pet IQ had the outcome that it had.
Yeah, isn't that a fun one?
It pumps me up so much. I remember us talking about that like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
I didn't hear the end of the story.
Yeah, it's a fun end to that story to see that's been built. And
no, it's like, it's amazing. It's so exciting.
Wow, especially for a place like Idaho, where I'm from, to be an Idaho company, to be a couple $2 billion company. It's really exciting to see those guys,
cool
to see where it came from. But all these things are hard fought. There's just no easy path. And I think people like to believe there's an easier, softer path. There's not. There's always going to be opposition in what that is. As an individual, as a company, that people want to come eat your lunch. And that's what we try to play as much offense as possible. We do have to be defensive in protecting that strategy and what we're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wake up and I don't know that I have the heart for that every single day.
Hard.
Yeah, I love that grandparent role as an investor that you and I talk about. But the reality is, when it goes well, there's nothing that I love more.
Yeah.
And in the end, most of these things will figure themselves out.
Yeah, they work out. They work out. Like one of the best pieces of advice, I remember I was in like a hard point in my career. And I went and I sat down with Alex Dunn, who was,
I love Alex.
He was my boss for a long time, big time mentor. And, he just said, you just got to stay in the game. Like, if you can just stay in the game, you'll have a chance to. And it was really helpful, because it was like, you don't need to win the game today. You just have to like stay in the game and keep fighting.
Yeah. And
I look back now, and it's that issue I was dealing with was so insignificant.
Isn't that right?
But at that point in life, it was everything. It was paramount, and it was stressing me out, and so, man, I'm loving. So give me kind of the 3.0 when you look at the future and you say, this is what I aspire with Clarke Capital, and this is what these are my aspirations for Clearlink and the other businesses that you're in. Like, what's the future look like in you accomplishing what you want to go accomplish?
As you think about your life and what you want to accomplish, I think maybe my little secret is that I don't feel like I've accomplished a whole lot so far. And the hope is that I actually do something that's of real meaning and consequence. And I think that's, the little farm kid in me that comes out that says that.
Do you think it's just insecurity?
I think it's drive. There's probably a part of that to say I want to prove myself to the world.
Yeah.
Sure. But the reality is, and I've said this to my kids, I've said this to a lot of young people, I don't know if I can teach drive. But I can certainly give you skills to aim that drive towards something that's worthwhile. But drive is special. And sometimes I feel like I need to pull the needle out a little bit, and, that I'm addicted to perhaps the next deal or the next thing. And I'll say, again, this is my holistic self speaking. I had a spiritual experience. This was, just hearing the words, you know who you are. Maybe that's enough that you've done this and this and this, when I oftentimes think, well, I've got to go do that. And you look at all the greats in your life that have been inspiring for you and I and so many other people, that you want to aspire to that. And I think that's that drive that I will always have. But that little whisper in my ear saying, you know who you are. And it didn't need to be the next watch or the next car or the bigger house or the whatever that was. And it changed the way I look at things in a meaningful way. It changed the old me that was, every deal I do, I'm going to buy a new this or a new that. And I think if you looked at my home today, and this is, by the way, I love a beautiful home, and I still am fascinated and love these beautiful cars and I'm fascinated by that, because I thought that is what success was when I was growing up and when I was that little Rexburg, Idaho kid. But knowing who I am was the greatest.
But do you think you have to have it before you can give it away? Because you've had all that stuff. You bought nice houses, you bought nice cars, you bought nice watches. Like, do you think there's a level of like, you have to own something before you can?
Maybe for me, for a dumb kid like me, that was. But I'll tell you, a lot of people are probably wiser than I was, thinking that to me, that's what success was. And the reality, it took me this many years later to figure out that that's not even close to what it is. And it is that opportunity. And I've seen you with your generosity, not just the visible generosity that you've given to universities and other things, but to individuals, that one, that, almost that ministering to the one as it is the theme of your life, giving back to the individual.
But I like nice things too.
Sure.
I like nice cars.
And who doesn't, right? And this is not me, poo-pooing that. That is just from me.
Yeah.
I probably live in the most nondescript home in our neighborhood. I drive an American-made GM car. I try to have dialed back what was once a very different part of me, only because
it was kind of unquenchable at some,
and it was never going to be. It was how many of those little things around my wrist can I put in a box that spins around, and it's given me great satisfaction to really be able to just turn outwardly rather than inwardly. And you think, well, my heart is pure, and I'm doing. And for me, I needed to make a change, and that was it. And I was helped along the way in a really sort of spiritual path. So,
it's super cool. So give me the Clearlink 3.0.
Well, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's the part of it that is.
But what do you want that business to be?
Well, for us, we've got some really interesting opportunities that we're in the middle of right now. I've repartnered with that Dave Bierce that was that first wonderful life science deal, and he's building something really special right now. We're large stakeholders in that business together, and it's already gotten global attention. For us, it's about these relationships. That 20-year relationship that I've had with Dave Bierce, readdressing that. There's such great satisfaction in that. Who's the next great relationship that you'll continue to build? So life is short, as people say, but life is long when you're with the wrong partners. For us, it is always about the who, far more than the what. And for us to be able to pick and choose with whom we are doing business has been the greatest gift ever. And so we're really selective about our deals. We do a lot of follow-ons, but we'll do, and have in the portfolio maybe a dozen companies at any given time. So not many.
You're not spreading it.
No, but we're going a mile deep on those. And we will do that with those with whom we really believe. And we'll take a very large position. But we're not perfect in this either. I mean, we don't have the oracle that can tell us what will be and what will not. So for us, we're going to go deep on meaningful relationships and proven entities and proven sort of talents. And that's where we are today. And I think that's, if I look to what I hope my kids will take on at some point, even though, growing up, I wanted them to know what EBITDA stood for and what does, a discounted cash flow look like. And this was when they were 5 and 6 and 7 years old. And I thought, this is a death sentence for those kids. If they want to be an artist or an architect or something else, I am teaching them to do one singular thing. So I backed off.
I was with a guy, Matt Hawkins, that's not
like Matt,
There's two Matt Hawkins. And Snap Finance Matt Hawkins. We own a business together.
Wow.
And we're in Little Rock at a
like a
board
Stevens
meeting.
Something.
Yep, it's with Stevens. It's
There's one group in Little Rock, so.
Yep, it's on the Stevens is an owner in that business with us. And anyway, I'm with Matt and he's talking about this book that he was reading about kind of succession plans and how you give to your kids in this process. And it was interesting. He talked about this book and in this book, they had some really interesting insights, which is it's really rare to have a wealth generator in a family. Like that's not normal. Wealth generators, creators of wealth are statistically rare. And so to have the expectation that one of your kids or all of your kids is naturally going to, have the capability and two, the desire to step in that role is kind of not a great expectation.
No,
you're setting up. And the point was kind of, it sounded a little depressing, but it's like, you need to dumb down your expectations a little bit.
It's fair.
And you got to set up the governance and set up the structure to go get the outcome that you want to go get, whether it's die with zero or whether it's, these are the things that somebody gets for being a member of our family. But a lot of it came back to, if you want a business to go 2, 3, 4 generations, it's got to be built on merit. And you have to hire the best people that the market can hire.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that doesn't generate wealth for your posterity or charities that you decide to give to or whatever. But if you don't build it on merits, it's going to break because business is really hard.
It is hard. And it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
As you've made the point already. And so for us, as we think about that sort of what does life look like and what does 3.0 look like for us, we are extremely focused on ways that we can give back. I don't think I can run it at this pace that I'm running right now for much longer.
You've ran at this pace for a long time.
It's been a long time, and I'm ready to sort of, and I also want to give back. I've taken on a new role with the UK government, and that's been rewarding as a give back. And when I went to school after HBS, that program that we've done, that was the gift to my children, that I'm going to finish school. I'm going to go to a pretty okay school. I'm going to Oxford, and that was for my children more so than for me.
Maybe let's stay on that topic.
Yeah.
Education's been something that's super important to you. You and your wife.
Sure. And for you as well.
You dropped out of school.
Yeah.
But you didn't stop. You went back. You did the Harvard program. You did Oxford, and you've kind of you're on the board at UVU. You've kind of dedicated a lot of your life to education,
and I love it.
Talk to me about education and kind of what that means to you and also to your family.
Yeah, I fell in love with higher education again. First as a student through this OPM program at HBS. It was the best program. I gained several business partners out of that one. I'm sure it's not too dissimilar for you. No. I think in my class of 120, we had a half dozen billionaires already built in that class. I mean, it was the greatest exposure one could ever imagine. But for me, it gave me a window into, again, what this art of the possible might be in business, to see what others have accomplished. And I wanted to give back to higher education. It was part of,
How important was it for you to take that program at that point in your career? Like when you look back?
Essential. I stepped away from a lot of things to be able to go almost a month at a time, right? As you did. But I had a solid team that could sort of do that. But it was the most valuable thing I could have ever done, because listen, even when I was in school, I was studying sort of geography or international relations. I didn't have the basics of business, and that's what taught me the basics of business.
You can just filled in the gaps?
In every way and then some. And it was such a help for me.
And what was the and then some? Because I know what I experienced.
It was the relationships beyond that. It was, seeing, okay, if you do, X plus Y isn't necessarily Z, it's Z plus, or, what you could really do. Then I learned about, family philanthropy. I learned about what some of my classmates were doing internationally. I mean, I felt like suddenly I had a very best friend in business in almost every major city in the world.
Yeah. How special is that?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. And so they've got something special there, and nobody does it better, in my humble opinion, than Harvard's able to do it that way. Same professors of their MBA program, same sort of amount of time. But what it didn't give me is that piece of paper that I needed as I walked into higher ed to serve and do things. And so I thought, when I was selling Clearlink and we were going through that transaction, this would be the one chance that I would have to sort of either finish what I'd started at BYU, or if I had that, opportunity to go to Oxford and finish a master's, that would be it. And so you don't say no to Oxford when they say yes. So cool. That's why I did that. And, it was a great gift. And now with that, consul role that I have here in the state of Utah and with the UK government, that's my gift.
Talk to me about that. Like, one, what is it? And two, how did it come about?
I had a good friend. I have a good friend named Jonathan Friedman. He's head of World Trade Center, Utah. About 20 years ago, he became the honorary consul to Ukraine. I was there at a ceremony. He said, for years, just kept saying, James, you ought to do this. And I thought for a while I would do it, where I served an LDS mission in the Dominican Republic. And, when I went to Oxford, fell in love with sort of that mother country of mine where my ancestors are from. And the chairman of our board was a Lord in the House of Lords. And, sort of this opportunity was reintroduced. And this is probably 3 years ago. I met with the consul general based out of Los Angeles, Emily Clarke. I interviewed with her as they were replacing the honorary consul here in the state of Utah, and I was appointed a couple of years ago.
How cool is that?
So it's a fun thing to be able to give back. And really, what it is if you are the representative of the crown in the country if there's someone who has lost their passport, or, sort of in that honorary capacity, or if someone gets into trouble with the law, or anyone in the state of Utah that is a UK citizen. So, it's been nice to open up our doors internationally that way, to give back when others are coming into town, dignitaries and the like. So it's been a really rewarding role for the past couple of years, and I've really enjoyed that. So that's
Super
what that
cool.
is. And I have my good friend, Jonathan Friedman, to thank for that one.
It's amazing. Talk to me about your marriage. You guys from the outside looking in, we haven't spent much time with you guys, like as far as dating or like going on double dates and stuff like that.
Okay.
But you got, like, from the outside looking in, you guys are really exceptional examples of one, you talk about building culture in your companies, but you build a special culture within your family, and you can see it and you can feel it. But also, like, you guys look like you actually like each other. Like,
that's a trick sometimes, isn't it?
After so many years, and have shared values and are both ambitious. And I'm going through this right now where, my wife has manned the house for 20 years.
Yeah.
And just kind of felt this desire to go get her education,
Right.
And for me, it's like, there's nothing that I love more than cheering for and like support her. But you guys have done both. She went and did her education at Columbia. You did yours at Oxford. Both of those have major sacrifices on the home front.
Yeah.
Like how do you think about marriage? How have you thought about like your marriage, your family culture, and how have you built that?
Well, gosh, it's a generous question. A lot of generous statements in there. And first, let me dispel the notion that anything is ever perfect, as you know it isn't. But we have a good relationship, and I not only do I love her, I like her a whole lot.
Yeah, she's
my favorite person in the world to be with, and it's great to see someone who has so much capacity and so much to give. And so I feel really fortunate there. We were brought together from heaven above, and it was one of those great things because she was 31 and I was 29 when we got married. We had a lot of time to think about this. And the gift for us was the day before we got married, I gave her this framed sort of mission statement of taking every conversation we'd ever had about how we wanted to raise our family. What did we want to do if we had resources? Are we generous? Are we thoughtful? Do we, value X or Y or Z thing? And so we sort of took those conversations, put it together as our family mission statement, and it sat in the foyer of every home we've ever lived in.
Wow.
So now with our kids in sort of that decade of decisions, old teenagers and in their young 20s, they're holding us accountable. Do you actually do this? Neighbors, friends, anybody that enters into our home gets to look at that and say, are you actually doing this?
But so many of those are lip service. You know what I mean? It's words on a wall, but somehow you guys have found a way to make that your DNA and your culture.
We hope so, but it's a work in progress for sure. And, I know you work with a lot of young people and mentor and so forth, but I meet with a lot of young couples that are about to get married in an ecclesiastical role and share this with them. The data says that most people spend far more time planning their weddings than actually planning their lives.
Wow.
And for
that's super profound.
And it's real. And for us, we had a lot of opportunity, not getting married till much later in life, to think about what would it look like for us.
Yeah.
So that was the gift of waiting when it's a lot of pressure in, of a certain faith tradition, the predominant faith in the state, that you have a lot of pressure at that age.
But what a gift that you actually could, build that from a place of some experience.
Well, work in progress. And we are so grateful that, that we're together, because I wouldn't want to be with anybody else.
My experience is the exact opposite. I was 22. She's barely
20. Fantastic. And how lucky were you? That's
so
great.
Lucky. But we didn't, you build it as you go, and I love, for us, we feel like we have a top 1% marriage. We feel like we have a really special marriage.
Yeah, and it is.
And we're always looking for couples.
Yeah.
Though we're we want to be like them. They
you guys are
give
special.
big to the community. They have tons of intimacy. They have a special family. There's a difference between being married and being married super happily.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
What I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and it's that work that you're putting in every day.
But we found over time, it has to be deliberate. It has to be real work.
Very intentional in what you're doing. And, when I was growing up, I wouldn't describe the parental example that either of my spouse or myself, so Andrea or myself, had was that example of that
model.
Model that we wanted. But I did have that model in another couple, and it was Mel and Bonnie Hammond in Rexburg, Idaho. They were these wonderful people. And as a youngster, I got to sit every week watching them in our meeting house, them talking to we 16-year-olds. They'd just come back from an LDS mission, presiding in Bolivia. And they would just lovey-dovey everything. Look at my beautiful silver fox of a husband and how wonderful he is. Look at my gorgeous wife. And I mean, they were in their, I don't know, late 50s or something talking about this. And that was what I wanted. And I saw that and what that was. And I have wanted to be a part of the Mel and Bonnie Hammond story my whole life. Cool. So I had these great examples. He ended up being the General Young Men's president of the LDS Church and the senior president of the 70, and was this great leader in the state house in Idaho, but just a great man that I was able to sort of hopefully pattern my life in a marriage after. So again, I like everybody you meet with stands on the shoulders of giants, but these are the giants that I got to watch growing up in that little community.
That's been my life, has been find examples and just try to copy everything that's good, and it's fun to hear you talk about these examples that still to this day, you're like, that impressed me at 16. That impressed me at 22.
That's it.
This impressed me at 32,
But I think that's a lot of, what I admire about you too, Casey, is that you're the same person. You're the same person that you were then, you are today, an improved person, but you've not forgotten about those relationships.
Yeah.
I think I've watched a lot of colleagues and friends that are mutual amongst circles where we've run that are not exactly the same, but the guys that I admire the most are those that are the same. I mean, I can pick up the phone and call Todd Peterson the same way that I could have 30 years ago when I was working for him. And he always picked up. And he does today, despite all the many things that are on his plate. And that's you. And that's, it's what I so admire about people like that I've watched throughout my life, is that you're inherently, despite learning a whole lot more, having that much more experience, at your core, that same good, wonderful person.
Yeah. No,
and
thank
that's
you.
What matters.
Thank you. I've got two questions before we finish up. One's on the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same question I'd give to David Neilman, which is knowing what you know now. And there's kind of two careers. You've got the operator career, and then you've got the investor career, and they're very distinct and very different.
Very, very different.
What advice would you go back and give yourself, 21-year-old James Clarke, on both of those hats? Both from the investment hat, what's the 2 or 3 or 4 principles that you say, I operate off of this now, and I wish I would have had this framework younger, would have helped me. And then the second one, what are those principles from an operator standpoint?
Yeah, I was afraid you were going to ask me that question. I would love another year to be able to answer that question, because the jury's still out on what's taking place with Clearlink and going back into that operational role.
So maybe the jury's still out on Clearlink, but the jury's not out for you.
No,
like you've had.
We've done okay.
You've been a fantastic operator and had exceptional outcomes.
We have, but I'm never going to be satisfied. So that's part of my DNA. But I think what I've learned in this, as I think about that and answering your question, sometimes the best deals are the deals we don't do.
Wow.
And that's a hard one for a guy who just wants to do great deals. And it's hard to say no. It's a lot harder for me to say no than sometimes to say yes. But if I'm just going to close my eyes, write a check and hand it over, that's way easier than actually what I try to do as an investor. I mean, you can imagine this. The day you write your check, you've virtually satisfied your obligation.
Yeah, you're kind of done.
Yeah, you're going to sit on a board, you're going to advise, you're going to do those things. But as long as those within the organization understand that you've met your requirement that day, you're at least with an honest and hardworking operator, there will be some management of the expectation. If they want you to come in and run their business or do X or Y or Z thing, it'll never work out. You invest
in the wrong business.
You did. And I've seen that over and over. They want you to come in and do things for them that I'm very happy to do, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do or the temperament to do at this point in life. But I've learned through some of these painful experiences that sometimes the best deals are the deals.
Are the ones you walk from. So that's the feedback you'd give to yourself is, you're going to want to do every deal.
And I can't.
And find a way to say no, and say yes to the ones that are all green lights, that say yes to the one that you really feel conviction on.
Absolutely. And especially for us, where it's my money that we're managing, and hopefully we're being good stewards to that money so we can give back. And it's not about, giving back once we get there. We have always tried to give back along the way. And this has been a painful one for us to and you've gone through this yourself, even at a university like UVU, or putting your name on something, because that's not your typical style. I've known you long enough to know that that's not your style. That was not ours either. We had done many other things that we had decided a long time ago. We'll never do that. We'll never put our name on something. But I had this conversation with Matt Holland as he presided over the university. And he said, this was really his cry for help. James, I need you. And I need this, because if you will put your name on a building here, then others will follow. They'll be inspired by this and they'll do that. And it really changed for me, sort of my mindset and how I look at that. And it was sort of the beginning of that really special relationship between he and I that helped me understand we have a responsibility to really stand up for sort of where we're going to allocate our resources to. There's going to be a lot where we're not going to sort of thump our chest and say, this is what we did. And that's the best part of everything that we do. But to really put your name behind a cause says you are there and you're all in, and you're inviting others to the table.
Honestly, our experience with UVU was very similar, except it was, the Astrid, which kind of was after Matt.
Yeah.
And it was her coming to us saying, we want people to donate.
Yeah.
And we want you guys to, give $5 million and to do the entrepreneurship center. Mm. And for us, where it was an easy yes was one, and I think this is insightful from fundraising standpoint. It was a very specific ask. So there was one ask with one decision, which I'm like, I'm a sales guy at heart. And so I'm like, that was a very effective sales presentation.
Well done,
But then the second piece is, if we can put it out there and have it public and run with it, which isn't our, it's not our thing. We like giving micro giving and small and consistent.
Amazing. And not always micro, but very consistent.
But on this one, it allows you to say, hey, we're doing this and here's the number. Yeah. Let's all of us step up and do the number and let's go help. Yeah. And it's local and it's just where we're going to be forever. We love Utah County. Yeah. We love entrepreneurs and what that does, and so it aligned with everything, and truly. We love the leadership there. We love Matt there and we love Astrid,
and she's wonderful. Yeah. It's been so fun to work with them, but it's been so fun to make that our university, right? Because if you want to get things done, you can get them done there.
I say this all the time, and it's controversial, but I'm like, the dollars punch so far above their weight at UVU.
They do.
They do. At BYU, the bench is so deep.
Yeah.
And you have tithing that funds, it's a private school. Where at UVU, they just value it more. Yeah. And there's they need more help. And so
you will change so many lives with that institute. And it's such a wonderful thing. So I'm so grateful to watch your example in that. And I've watched in awe. I'm so grateful we get to talk a little bit about how that came to be.
So give me the operating side. What are those operating principles that you say, man, I wish I would have known this. And this is, because I think you have, even as an investor, I talked to Jeff Curl about this, the magic of being an investor, you get to see a lot of businesses.
You do.
When you're just operating your own business, you see your own business. But when you're investing, you get to see a lot of management teams. You get to see how they run the board. You get to see how they hire their teams, how they allocate stock.
Yeah. And I think there was a major shift not so many years ago for me that as an investor, I kept thinking, but they will work like I work in a business. Therefore, it will work.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can allocate to them because these guys, they'll work as I do. And what I've finally, it's sort of that duh moment, but people don't work like that. They don't always, there's no substitute for caring. And you can't teach people to care. And if they don't care with all that they are and you're not aligned in that, it's just not going to work. And it certainly won't work the same, even if it does. And so for me, I sort of had to dial it back and just stop thinking, oh, I could solve that for them. Or if they did this as I would. And, I don't mean to say that as if I've got the market cornered on good ideas, because I do not. But it took me a moment to step back and say, as an operator, both as operator investor, people are going to do what they're going to do. People are naturally going to do what they're aligned to do. And you've got to you're betting on this horse and you hope that they have the experience to make this work. But that relationship generally never gets better, meaning that their responsiveness, their, goodwill never gets better the day after you allocate capital. You are seeing them at their very, very best. This is your courtship up through this, and it generally doesn't get better. So you better have a very, very insanely talented person on the other side of that that is very, very driven. It is the burn the ships day. They cannot have another option.
For me, the deals that I've made a lot of money. It's all operator. It's the Todd Petersons, it's the Weston Lunsfords, it's the Bruno Limas. It's like that operator is fanatical.
Absolutely.
And they're capable and they just will it into fruition.
And you're aligned for the same outcome.
And you're on the ride. Yeah. But think that you can come in for 3 hours a week and do anything, it's just,
there's no way.
It's naive.
There's no way. Absolutely. And they just, it's a special person. And so you wait for that special person to come in. And, when Dave Beers came into my office, a year and a half ago to talk about this new opportunity together, I'll keep a check in my back pocket for those kinds of deals.
Yeah,
and it had never happened.
Sight unseen.
It literally was, I pull out the check. Here it is. There you go.
Yeah,
and then we did the diligence after that out of good governance. But it literally is that special to see that kind of operator, someone that I've known for 20 years with the right kind of
100%.
Deal in their pocket at the same time. And I will pull out a check and write it at that moment. And then the diligence happens and we do it the right way. But the reality is they are special and it is about investing those.
So to still it back and to tighten it up on this, one question, what are those principles? If you could go say, hey, this is what I've learned.
Speaking of mentors, another great mentor that passed away a couple of years ago, a guy named Reed Halliday. He managed about $10 billion with Bel Air Investment Advisors. And he taught me that he invests for 3 reasons and 3 reasons only that I've adopted, which are I like them, I trust them, and then we're going to go do something special.
Wow.
So it's very simply.
That's fantastic.
But it's real. And if you think about every relationship in your life, the imperfect ones, the great ones, you like them, you trust them, and then you can do whatever the business is or those kinds of things.
That's super profound. I've never heard that before.
Well, when people walk through your door, you're not going to invest in somebody that you just don't, at your core, if you don't like them.
But I have before.
And it doesn't.
And I don't think it's worked out well.
And even when it does,
it's definitely been rocky.
Yeah, you know and it doesn't feel great. Even when it does, it's like,
sure.
Gosh. And do you trust them? And that is, once you've lost that trust piece of a business relationship or any relationship, it's so hard to bring that back. Rarely does it come back. So you've got to really fundamentally know that you could trust them in that, and then you'll do something special. So if I don't have those first 2 in a pitch, where it's like, oh, I could see myself spending an inordinate number of hours with this person,
you're out. Yeah.
For us. So we say no to a lot of deals these days. And, we're really focused on the portfolio as it is right now. We've done a lot of follow-ons. We've been cleaning up a lot of messes over the last 2 years because we invested in, a group that we fundamentally thought was one thing when they were another thing. And I won't talk about that this time, but you and I will have another conversation about that one because that we are cleaning up only so I can get money back to our LPs. That's that magic 30. This is a different deal, but it's a $30 million loss for me.
Isn't that amazing to just the ones you're working the hardest on, you're making nothing. You know what I mean? It's literally just fighting to do the best for the people who invested with you.
And I hope my LPs never even know that that's me taking that loss. It's not, and that's why I'm not mentioning the name of the company, and because we just generally don't lose. But this is one that was fraught with fraud and all kinds of other challenges that were self-inflicted. But I will not allow others to lose their money. It probably would have been easier and wiser for me just to hit the timeout button and say, let's just shut it down and I'll write checks back to LPs because I don't raise it as a fund. It's not, this is the deal that I pitch them or my partners pitch them. And at the end of the day, that's on me and I've got to own it. And so I'm doing that out of, I hope, the right thing and hopefully out of a character move, and I don't mean it as a move, but who I am at my core. But the reality is, I know that that's not required of us.
Yeah.
But it is the right thing to do. And especially when it's been something that's so egregious. And anyway, I'm speaking in code right now. You and I could have another conversation around this one, but at my core, I have a hard time letting other people lose. I'm happy to take the loss, but I studied this when I was at Oxford. The question that I asked as part of my dissertation was, do you love to win or hate to lose?
You hate to lose worse than you.
Those, and there's a power in this. There is a power. And I remember I was asking, a guy that I know you would know, and Steve Young, this Hall of Fame quarterback. And I was interviewing him for the thesis. Right after that, I interviewed Jerry Rice. But this wasn't the core of the thesis or the dissertation. It was asking, do you love to win or hate to lose? And he said, oh, I just love to win. 30 minutes goes by. I have more interviews. And he comes back to me. He's like, James, I'm really sorry. I got to tell you.
I got it wrong.
I just hate to lose. And turns out I interviewed 17 sort of CEOs or leaders of their field and asked that same question. Wow. And the data in a disproportionate way shows that those who hate to lose are far more successful in their given field than those who just love to win. I love to win if I'm going to win. But it doesn't keep them from losing when the chips are down and when things are really hard. And so for a world-class, both athlete and operator like Steve is, that was a great lesson that I learned. Wow. But these guys, those 17 that I interviewed, had built sort of or managed about $500 billion worth of assets. So pretty remarkable sample, but it was something that I really learned about those guys. And so for me, as I talk about businesses where we've taken our licks, I hate to lose, but I absolutely will not allow those around me to lose when I've taken the risk on their behalf. And so that's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I have the stomach to take other people's money on and co-invest that way when we had sort of had no control over what's
the outcome. Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. It's a case study that we'll talk about some more, but it's very much in play.
Let me finish with this. Talk to me about faith. Through that whole journey, that's been something that's kind of been a foundation for you and your family. Talk to me about how faith has factored for you in the journey and where it still sits.
It's everything. I know it is for you as well. It's the core of who I am. Both in terms of faith in other people, faith in, a savior and he that helps me every single day, and knowing at my core who I am, and what my responsibility and my stewardship is in this life. And it's the whole person that I come to work with every single day. That is not just business James Clarke in the room or ecclesiastical leader in that role. It's the whole person that I show up with every single day. And my team knows it. Those that are not of, a corresponding faith of any sort, and those who are not faithful at all, still know that we're probably going to talk about faith in one way or another. And whether that be faith in people, faith in God, or whoever you see as your higher power. But it is everything to me. It's what drives me. It's what gets me on my knees and out of bed every morning. And it's impossible. I was going to say it's hard, but it's impossible to come to work and separate those things out, because to do that would be a grave mistake for any individual. And for me, it has been the greatest part of my life to finally accept that I can't separate it out. And this took place some time ago, but you think, okay, I go to work and this is who I am, and I'm here with my family or in my faith. There's no way to do that. And if anybody does that, they're making a big mistake.
I was going to say, have you ever met anybody who's done that successfully?
No.
Separate the two?
No, you can't. You can't.
Because I haven't.
No.
Like I've never, like the people that I'm drawn to, there's a tremendous authenticity.
Yeah.
There's a realness, and it's just a realness. Like they're the same person wherever you see them.
That's it.
And that's what I'm drawn to, because it's, it's real.
It's real. But people are so afraid to talk about their faith in a business setting or in even a friendship setting or in a casual setting.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say that is what it's all about. Because that's your whole person showing up to talk about that faith and that belief that makes you who you are. And I know that's part of your life and the biggest part of your life and it certainly is of mine because I'm nothing without it. So both as a belief in what makes me whole and who I am, but also belief in the future. A lot of people will get down on business or get down on this next generation of people or what's taking place in markets. And I'm a firm believer in the best of humankind and that we're better together. And as we work together and as we sort of strive together, my favorite word in all of my vocabulary is to strive because it means we're just stepping forward every single day.
I love it. Let me give you some observations, and this is a little different than things that I've done in the past. Okay. But I think I'd be remiss not to share them because I have known you for so long. This is what I've loved about watching your journey. The continuous learning, that Kaizen or that excellence principle, that constant never-ending improvement, even just catching up today and hearing the end of some of these stories that I knew you were in these deals 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Yeah. And continuing to grow and continuing to learn like the Harvard stuff or the Oxford stuff or
share this.
And I think maybe that's why I'm drawn is when you see it in other people. So I love that. You've always been really kind to me. Right. And not everybody has, and I'm sure you found times where that, but kind to me when you didn't need to be. And I've always experienced that from you, just kind of a warmth and an encouragement and a cheering. And so I love that trait that you have. A couple more.
Am I supposed to stay quiet? This is awfully hard for me.
You got to listen. So the other one is the faith component. I've always just really admired how that's been a core piece of you doing business, and you've owned it, and you've haven't shied away from it, and it's not a self-righteous in your face thing. It's a very authentic, even humility that you're bringing to the table, just saying, I'm trying like everybody else, but you work hard at trying. And I've always admired kind of that and think, the people that you lead both at Clearlink and ecclesiastically are lucky to have you as a leader. So those are all things that I admire about you. And I'm, always cheering for your successes. Love to see the success you're having, in your career. And we'll have to link up later and get kind of 2.0 on how this Clearlink story ends, because there's wood to chop.
Oh, there is for sure a lot.
There's some story.
We're right in the middle of it. It's hard for me to close my mouth and listen because I see you and I see what you've done. And as we've shared mentors and Todd Peterson that we've talked a lot about. Yeah. One of my favorite moments of knowing you is to watch you come back and give back to someone who gave a lot to you and that you've given to, and to be grateful. You are that person. And for you to even share with me that way, I don't mean this to turn into that love fest, but in reality, there's so much admiration that I have for you because of who you are. And I would also say, because of you and what you have done working with Todd, there's not another place in this state that's now known well for its entrepreneurs that has created more entrepreneurs than what you did at Vivint.
Thank you.
Truly. And what you're doing today. So I really admire that.
It was fun. So me and him just invested in another one of those door companies.
Did you?
And it's been fun to see Todd as Grandpa Todd. Legit Grandpa Todd. He's got grandkids.
It's amazing.
But to be able to, because that to me was always a spiritual experience. And I never fully understood it. Like, I remember I would talk to my wife. I'm like, I swear I get more spirituality out of work than I do at church. And she was always kind of offended by it, and I couldn't capture what it was. But as I've got older, it's when you serve people and like when you grow at a high level, and these young kids, they go from not having any skills to getting skills and believing. And like when you can pour yourself into them, it's just so fun. And then you fast forward now and you see these kids that were kids, and now they're business owners and founders and entrepreneurs. And it's just so gratifying, to be a part of it. And so
you are the ultimate builder and lifter.
Yeah. It's so fun.
To watch it.
Brother, thank you. Thanks for coming in, and we'll do this again. This podcast is brought to you by Sandlot Partners.